Hello everyone, it's Ashwin Rao, and today's video brings you a really cool new boot brand hailing out of India. Delhi, India specifically, is where Craft and Glory started their boot making and heritage footwear business back in 2017. They've recently been making waves on Instagram. They've really drummed up and increased the quality of their Instagram productions, and I would say they have some of the highest quality content in terms of production value currently out there amongst the new and emerging heritage boot brands. So I reached out to Craft and Glory, and they were more than accommodating in sending me this particular pair of boots, which we'll see in a moment, for review. And so I did not pay for this boot, but I'm going to give you my honest feedback and review. I'm taking a look at it for the first time, and you can see that it comes incredibly beautifully boxed. And I will say this box had a separate box that was fitted to this box in which shipment happened. And I just was very impressed with the initial packaging. It actually reminds me a bit of this packaging of White's boots, the same kind of graphic design that you can see here. Really nicely done job there. So the boot is reminiscent of some of the Pacific Northwest packaging. So now let's go through the unboxing here. I'm gonna speed things up a little bit just so you can get a sense for what this packaging looks like. Each of the elements of this box actually are attributable to some aspect of Craft and Glory's production values and workshop. So for example, they take you through a video where this is their lead bootmaker, if I'm not mistaken, currently delasting a shoe, removing the last from the shoe. A lot of these elements include their old sewing machine, their grinding machine, as well as a bunch of other elements. I think this is attribution to their the different stitches and sewing materials that they use. First off, we'll talk about the items that come outside of the boots. Already inserted, and I took these out, are these foam foot pads that add some comfort. I think these are nice to have and are fitted to the shape of the last here, which you can see again is that rounded toed last, and nicely stitched together actually. And this foam is a nice option for those people who are transitioning from the cheaper footwear where foam has become synonymous with comfort. Those of us who have been wearing heritage or classic dress wear for some time are much more comfortable standing on leather and allowing that leather to mold over time. But if you're somebody who's used to coming from more low-end shoe wear, this foam footbed will be a nice transition. Inside of the shoe is a genuine leather insole here that you can see with the marks which were done to last the shoe previously, and you can see these 4 screws done to secure this full leather heel block here. So just really rugged construction. You get these 2 non-leather nylon laces, one that gives this more of that workwear style and one maybe more tonal in terms of consistent with this vintage brown buffalo leather, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, that gives it more of a heritage look. This is the pair I likely used. These are, I believe, waxed. They feel waxed. Yep, they are waxed. And now let's get to the boot here. So first off, you see this service style boot with a more traditional, higher volume toe box here. You can see that toe box has a slight upturned nose and just a little bit of toe spring built in, and this toe is reinforced with some sort of material. I'm not sure if it's leather or something else that forms the stability of that toe box, but it is a structured toe and a structured heel counter. That said, for this boot, which costs $220, there's an impressive amount of handwork and leather componentry used to assemble this shoe. So first off, we're gonna have this leather, which is a buffalo leather, a full grain veg tan buffalo leather. And this is a 5-ounce or 2 millimeter thick leather. The veg tanning provides a fair bit of pull-up that you can see right here, which is a vintage brown colorway. Now they also have several other colors available should you choose more of a red brown, like a lighter mid-brown leather. And they have a couple others. I believe black is the other color they offer, but I thought this vintage brown would go well with a wide range of my denim and other colorways here. You can see tonal tan stitching formed to create the design on the cap toe, as well as along the side paneling and facing here. You see in between this triple row stitch here is a more natural or lighter stitching done to create a nice aesthetic, a la what I've seen from, say, Red Wing with their Iron Rangers. I like that look, gives it a little bit more pop. A 10-ounce or 4 millimeter thick midsole. We can't see the welt here, but the midsole we can. And so a lot of leather, full grain leather, welt and midsole. And you also have this upper leather being 5 ounces or 2 millimeters thick with a leather lining, which you can see on the midsole, the mid portion of the foot moving forward. And that is a much thinner 3-ounce or 1.4 millimeter thick leather. So the thickness through this portion of the shoe and the forefoot is going to be approximately 8 millimeters, which is comparable to what you would say feel from a Pacific Northwest maker. Here you're going to get a little bit more. It's still fairly thick here, but you can see the rough outside of that leather right here, which should also provide some traction for avoiding heel slippage. So I really like that. The 5 eyelets and 2 speed hooks. These are antiqued brass eyelets and speed hooks. Well done, pretty classic, nice moldable speed hooks, and you can see the affixation of the speed hooks and the eyelets there. Nicely done. Speaking of peeking into the details, Craft and Glory has provided this cloth size tag. So interestingly, I'm typically a UK 9, and it looks like they've given me a UK 8.5 EU 42. So I'm hoping that this fits me. Certainly with the size and volume of this toe box, nice rounded, slightly asymmetric last, maybe inspired by a Munson last, given its asymmetry, but it's fairly rounded. This should hopefully give me enough space using thinner socks, but something else to factor in. I will say that I sent all of my measurements as well as tracings to the team at Craft and Glory, and they used those tracings and measurements to size me. We see a non-branded commando style lug sole here. It's a full sole, not the half sole where you see the leather in the middle. This material feels fairly grippy. Doesn't feel like it's going to cause that much slipping. Feels similar to, say, a Vibram full commando sole, but I've heard that this is slightly softer. Here we have the Goodyear welting stitch line across here, and you can see that these stitches are not recessed, so these will eventually wear through, but will still be secured to the rest of the sole by the stitching here, as well as the adhesive used to secure the different pieces of leather together. I say that because you have a hard wearing buffalo full grain leather, which looks like it's going to stand up to the test of the workplace if you're in one of the more service oriented fields. You can feel how secure this toe box is, which should provide a fair bit of support and structure there. Should you be dropping heavy objects or other things, this is going to protect your toes well as the heel block and the heel counter here. Going to be very supportive. May take a little bit more time to break in. Slightly lower stitch density on the Goodyear welting and stitching done here, but more than adequate. I don't see any folded over leather, which is something that White's does with their stitch down. So this is more of your traditional flat welt, 360 degree flat welt. If I had to choose between these boots from a price standpoint at $220 compete with, say, a brand such as Jim Green, but have more hand welting, handwork done and use buffalo leathers instead of cowhides. So some differences there. I think that these would compete exceptionally well with, say, a gym green at its price point. Now, the lasts are going to be different. This last has less arch support. It does have a bit of arch support, but you can simply add that by throwing in a $20 insole and removing this foam pad to give yourself more support should you want it. So again, depends on what your needs are, but I'm very impressed. A few other details. It's partially gusseted tongue here, and by partially I mean almost non-gusseted, just a little bit of gusseting here. So not a ton of rain protection there, but otherwise this should work well. You can see they've cut 2 slits to help secure the lacing should you use to wish that, so the lacing and the tongue doesn't just flop on down. Other than that, I am very impressed by what I'm seeing from Craft and Glory. High quality leather componentry, steel shank, a lot of protection along the heel and toe, rugged commando sole, full grain buffalo leather with a nice pull-up veg tanned antique brass eyelets, a spacious and roomy last that should fit well and break in over time with workwear thickness leather to provide protection. Couple laces, beautiful packaging. What more could you ask for, guys, at 220 bucks? Not a whole lot. Craft and Glory, give these guys a look. They're raising the game in the heritage footwear scene, particularly along the entry point. So give them a strong consideration. Craft and Glory, have a good one. Take care and goodbye.